telling you right now, this was done the right way.
Hamilton County's prosecutor hits back after his office takes heat over a second mistrial in Ray Tenzing's case. Good evening, everybody. I'm Rob Braun.
And I'm Paula Toti. Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Deters isn't shy about voicing his opinions, but he says a gag order issued by the judge in Ray Tenzing's retrial prohibited him from doing so.
And now he's speaking about the second mistrial for the first time. Anjanette Levy has more on the interview and the possibility of a third trial. Anjanette.
Well, Rob, Joe Deters spoke by phone today with 700 WLW's Bill Cunningham. The two have been friends for many years. They discussed the second trial, a plea deal, and the charges on which a grand jury indicted Tenzing.
To say the prosecutor's overreached, that's idiotic. I mean, it's idiotic.
Joe Deters responding to criticism about the charges Ray Tenzing faced. Deters says grand jurors chose to indict Tenzing on murder and voluntary manslaughter charges after a judge told them about a number of charges they could consider. Deters also responding to Tenzing's attorney's claim that his client turned down an offer to plead guilty to reckless homicide.
He said he wasn't going to plead to a felony. Number one, he wasn't going to plead to anything because he thinks he's not guilty, as do I.
Deters says there was only a quick conversation before the trial in passing about Tenzing pleading guilty to reckless homicide. However, during the trial, Tenzing was asked in Judge Giz's chambers whether he would plead guilty to reckless homicide, and he said no. Deters says the offer was made to spare the Dubose family pain and because the jury may see the evidence differently.
It could have indicated recklessness because of what he had done. It could have indicated that. My feeling on the whole case hasn't changed at all, but I know reasonable people could disagree with that.
Deters was also critical of Judge Giz's rulings. For example, she allowed Tenzing's attorney to repeatedly bring up Dubose selling marijuana, his 13 children, and his poor health, but prosecutors were not allowed to question Tenzing about his character. Meanwhile, he still hasn't decided whether the case will be tried a third time.
No one has won and no one has lost.
Right.
Both cases have hung, and we got to decide if there's a likelihood of success at trial. That's my only issue now.
Now, there were questions about whether the prosecution would go back to the grand jury and ask for a superseding indictment. They would then ask for lesser charges to be added. Those would include possibly reckless homicide, which they wanted to add during the trial. Deters says the time for that has long passed. They can no longer do that. They would have had to have done that 6 months before the first trial, so that is not going to happen.
That's interesting because I thought, or at least I was told by people who claimed to know, that that was a possibility.
Yeah, we were all told that.
Yeah, Mathews, I know, was also frustrated by some of the things that he was not permitted to include in the trial and also ask about.
Right. Joe Deters saying, they were allowed to beat up Sam Dubose, but Stew Mathews says, there are things that Judge Giz would not let us ask about, including his prior contacts with police and then things about the toxicology results from Sam Dubose's autopsy, which would have showed the medications that he was taking and possibly tipped the jury to the illness from which he was suffering.
Which never was public.
Correct.
Right?
That has never been disclosed.
Yeah. All right. Thanks very much.